Okay, this is IndieWebCamp NYC 2018 in the Dream Factory room. This will be the readers session, hashtag readers. I think you're good to go. I dropped in the Etherpad, I'm just in /readers, and I put the Hangouts link and the YouTube link for people that want to join remotely.
Awesome.
Should be good. Need anything else?
No.
All right. Fun.
You gonna go learn how to build a website?
What's up?
You gonna go learn how to build a website?
I guess I left all my stuff in there. I don't know. What are you going to talk about here? Maybe I should come do this.
Yeah, whatever you want to talk about. What do you want to talk about?
I would love to see more of the. I mean, you gave a little demo of what you're.
Yeah, I tried to use readers like after the summit, and it didn't really work.
Okay.
So I'd like to refresh if what's possible.
Yeah, let's figure that out.
Let's. I was really excited by I didn't even know about the not just aperture, but what aperture represented before June. So I love the idea, and I love that something's there. I just can't quite grasp it.
I'd be interested in seeing the posting interface you use for your own blog too.
Sure.
If you wouldn't mind showing us.
Let's see if that TV works.
Does not look on. It's the red light of offness. You got it. Got a picture.
Oh,
great.
Okay. Cool. Oh, ignore that. That's a surprise. Change my resolution. I can actually see stuff. Cool. So readers. Well, let's. Where should we start?
What menu bar clock or date do you have?
Oh yeah, this is a good app.
What's that?
It's called ItzyCal.
IndieWebCamp. One I was using hasn't been supported on my system update, and now every time I click on it, it crashes and freezes the whole menu bar.
Oh, speaking of
Oh, you
readers,
found your avocados.
my avocados show up in the reader because I got a web mention.
Yeah.
So what happens if the post gets deleted?
So my reader doesn't support deletes right now, so it just
It caches it.
has it still. I should add support for removing it when it recognizes the post has been deleted.
So it caches all of the stuff inside the message too. So it's cached that.
Exactly. It's even downloaded a copy of this. So if you go and look at the address of this, it's actually
What happens if
copied
someone
it.
sends you like a MPEG?
they'll download it.
It's downloading it
Yep.
too, so it'll start filling up pretty.
Yeah. I have some stats on it. So it is up to, this is how much it's been growing. Storing
What's the
500,000 entries in the database now.
In 1 year?
In
Oh,
4
no,
months.
4 months.
Sorry, what represents a single entry here?
A post. So this
You have 4 million.
500,000 posts the reader has collected now.
Oh, your reader. I got it.
Yeah. So so aperture across everybody's
Everyone you're following.
everyone I'm following, but also everybody else who's using aperture.
The whole service.
Oh, that's just the whole
Okay.
server, not just you.
Not just me. Yeah.
How many people are using Aperture?
I don't know actively. I think there's 100 people something have signed up for an account. I don't know how many have actually added feeds and actually are using it. But yeah, so it is storing 500,000 entries in database. It takes almost 2 gigabytes to store those.
Okay.
This is the amount of space on disk all the files are taking up, which is over 20 gigs of images, both avatars. So all of these get stored too. And then any attachments, including videos, get stored. And I do that because for a couple of reasons. I don't want to have to hotlink from the web or from other apps. I also want, if those sites go away accidentally, I want to have a copy of it. I should be respecting deletes. And if someone intentionally deletes a post, this should actually go and delete it as well.
After you get notified with a web mention?
Yeah, so if you look at the web mention spec, there's a section on delete, which is basically if you want to delete something that you sent, if you want to delete a post, make sure that that URL returns HTTP 410 for deleted, which indicates it's been explicitly deleted rather than just it's not found.
Yeah.
And then anybody you sent the web mention to before, go and send a new web mention, the same as before, and the source will end up returning a 410 when they get it. And if they've received it before, they will recognize that it's now deleted and they should delete it themselves.
So with the activity hub feeds that you're following, if someone does a delete and redraft, you just get
I end up with duplicates, yeah, which has happened a couple times. And those work separately because those aren't web mentions.
And then
or aren't in my feed, of course. So
there's also a couple projects that have implemented native editing, but I think it's still on their side. It would be native editing, but then if it's sending out, it would be.
Yeah, so that's updates. Those are updates, and I do handle that.
Oh, so it would actually update the.
Yeah, so that's why this image is showing, because remember the first time this web mention showed up, it didn't have the image.
A web mention up.
But the same concept
can work through activity pub ones too.
Yeah, and just fetching feeds. So anytime and
RSS feeds.
Yeah, and microformats feeds. So if I fetch a web page and it's got a bunch of entries in it, and then I fetch it again the next time and it's changed, it dedupes on the URL of the post, and we'll go and update that.
Do you mind showing? I'm guessing you have a Twitter connected here, so it's one of the.
Yeah. So this is.
These are the mentions. What about just like the actual feed itself?
Of people on Twitter. So I don't have like a list.
Oh, you don't? Do you follow some people on Twitter or no?
I don't follow. I do follow people on Twitter. I follow some coworkers on Twitter. What I've done is I've actually made a Twitter list.
Okay.
In Twitter.
I see.
And then added that list as a source here.
So what is OKTA?
That's a company I work for, Okta.
Okay.
So these are a bunch of my coworkers, and I've added them all to a list. I also added a search for Okta and Okta Dev on Twitter. So anytime people mention, so these two people are my coworkers, and then there's like our blog, and then our Twitter account, and then man.
This is using the Twitter API to grab this stuff.
Yeah. So this is.
And it's caching it.
It's caching.
So the UI doesn't kind of confirm this for me, but am I understanding correctly that this is a Twitter feed Twitter feed off the list on Twitter called Okta?
No. So let me show you Aperture. The Aperture is the backend for the reader. The Aperture is the thing that is exposing an API that Monocle knows how to deal with. Monocle doesn't know where the data is coming from. Mm-hmm. It has no concept that something came from HTML, RSS, ActivityPub, web mention, whatever. All it knows is that when it makes a request to list a timeline, it gets back a bunch of items in the timeline, and the items are in a certain format, and then it can render the post. So Aperture is the thing that is exposing an API. And my website says to Monocle, this URL is where you can go fetch errands, timelines, and channels and content. Aperture is the thing that actually understands like how to get stuff in. For example, in this, there are 4 sources of data.
Okay.
One of those sources is an RSS feed. Another one is a Granary URL, which is a proxy for Twitter.
Okay, gotcha.
So Granary has the ability to convert a bunch of different things into HTML. And then I have another blog here as well. And if you look at some of my other channels, some of them are just API keys. So this one, I just said new API key, give it a name, and then it gives me a token, and then I can write external scripts to push content into this channel using that API key.
Yep, gotcha. So it doesn't even have to come from that source.
Yeah, so for these are actually just like, there aren't any actual backend feeds to these. This is just a way that webmention.io can make content appear in this channel. And this is for my website.
Okay. So I have an idea that I had before, and it's one of the reasons why I'm here. I wanted to kind of like discuss it, if you don't mind. So
Sure.
It's definitely in this space. But basically, one of the benefits of IndieWeb is that you can kind of take data and maybe run an experiment where you visualize it in a certain way where you couldn't otherwise. So like, let's say we use Twitter data as the source, as an example. So if you just go to twitter.com, you're obviously going to see the feed as they render it. If you do something like this, you could start to say, like, I want to visualize that data in a different way. So one of the problems that I have, like, I use Twitter, I'm on it, I'm just using the website for now. And the problem is that once you start following too many people, it went from, like, I could actually read all the tweets and follow them, especially now with the algorithms and too many people that I follow. It's, like, getting to a point where I can't do that. So, and I want to, like, try to visualize the data in a way that I could keep up to date. And the problem is that some people that I follow tweet very often, others tweet very little, and they're the ones that I want to see like every single tweet of. So my idea was to present data not as a time-based feed, but just kind of person-based. So like I'd see all the people that I follow, and then for each person, it'd be their latest tweet or like the latest 3 tweets, something like that.
Yeah.
And I imagine that something like this should be possible with
Absolutely.
basically like visualizing some of this data.
This is a pretty good framework for it already, and I think that this just needs one more level to do exactly what you're talking about. So I have the same problem. I've been completely abandoned all hope of following my Twitter home timeline.
That's the feed, right?
Yeah.
Should be.
Okay, so I'll see what
I've abandoned all hope of keeping up with my Twitter home timeline for many reasons, like you just listed.
Yep.
But I do still care about some things on Twitter. There's a few people I individually care about on Twitter, and there's hashtags and searches. So if you go to this one, this is everybody talking about IndieWeb and IndieWeb terms on Twitter, right? And by having it in this folder, I can then go and pull this up and be like, okay, I'm going to catch up on IndieWeb tweets today.
Yeah.
Right. So the one level deeper that you're talking about is, so you know how like, here's my channel config. So IndieWeb has two sources. One is a Twitter search, one is a Spectre search, which are actually API keys, but that's not important. What I want to do in this is have the ability to drill down and from within this view, open up who are all the people posting inside that, and being able to filter further.
Gotcha.
To be like, okay, I see that I want to go see like what this person has posted, click on them, and then in this context, see what they've posted.
Right. So one of the kind of things that could make this work is that you would actually, like this page that I imagine would actually show everything kind of on the same page all at the same time. So like you just kind of glance over it visually, as long as you can scroll over the people that are there, you do. So like there shouldn't be clicking, but again, it doesn't have to be exactly this UI. It's just that you could conceivably add another different type of tab where it would kind of separate all the entries there instead of like showing them again in a time-based order, but just like do it for every person.
Let me show you one more thing. So
they're saying the Hangouts link isn't working on that room.
you got the wrong one.
The IndieWeb chat room just said Hangouts link isn't showing live feed.
Let me try. How do I paste on this computer?
No.
No.
Oh, watch,
Careful.
No.
Definitely no.
Yes.
Aaron, did you post your slides from this morning?
No. How do I use this?
What are you trying to do?
Trying to copy the URL.
Control is
Control C.
not easy to get to. Yeah.
Now,
Or did you have to start a new one?
no, but they said that one doesn't work.
So
I'm just trying to double check
Control C
this.
meaning stop.
Yeah, that's the one.
Oh, weird. Maybe yeah, it's
It's
C is
for context
Here, I can take over.
dependency.
I get back to running the actual site.
That second one should work.
Okay.
Okay, so what I wanted to show was Together, which is another reader that is also talking to my Aperture server. So when I go log in here, the cool thing about this is that it looks slightly different and it works a slightly different way.
Whoa, what are all those?
Those are all the Microsoft scopes. So blocking people, muting people, following. I can allow readers to
Wait.
only do some of those actions.
Can we see that again? I looked at that.
So that's,
You have a dark mode?
I didn't write this. This is Grant.
Oh, somebody
Yeah.
created this. Okay.
So this is my OAuth screen.
Uh-huh.
So I can say, actually, I don't think Aperture should be able to delete posts, or Together should be able to delete posts, and I don't want it to be able to block people. And now when I approve, it'll only be able to do these things that are checked.
And that was the interface that you wrote for that.
That's on my website.
On your website.
So
That's your auth interface.
that's my auth interface, yeah. So if you use WordPress, you get a slightly different one, but it accomplishes the same goal and just looks slightly different. So this is what Together looks like, which again, so you can see my list of channels on the left. Notifications are up here instead of listed as one of the channels on the left. You can see the avocado dancing. But what I wanted to show was that, I think this one might have some. These channels have alternate views. Oops, no, that's a list of people, this one. So I can say, actually, I want this channel to look like I want this
That's
channel.
why I block. Let's just move the chair.
You scoot it back.
Yeah. So we don't end up doing the same thing there. Because it's recording whatever's from there.
Okay.
So
I think
it's
you're
funny
all
when we do that.
Here we go.
Just
Oh,
a
cool.
heads up.
So now this
Okay.
channel,
If you type stuff on your screen, it'll be in the video.
Okay, it's a gallery.
so now this channel is showing the posts, but reformatted. Now it's showing photos.
So
there's
altogether
all-
now is a different reader app that's using the same backend,
It's using my backend
but it can,
because
you
I
can-
logged in. And if
because
you
you
log
logged
in,
in.
it'll use your backend.
as long as I have. Does it require what does it require as the backend? It requires.
So it requires a backend that speaks microsub, which is a spec.
Okay.
And microsub is the spec that readers expect to be able to talk to a server to find data. So Grant was able to write this without writing any server code to deal with fetching feeds and managing that content because it's just a view.
That's fucking cool.
So yeah, so
Whoa,
he's
that's how
also
he displays the photo posts.
this is the photo grid view of a channel.
So it's only showing photo posts and
Oh.
filtering out all of the.
Wait a
Exactly.
minute, is it
Finding
showing?
posts with photos, yeah.
Is it showing all my photos from
Apparently,
one post, or is it?
it shows each photo as an individual.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So it's finding all of those photo attributes of
From a multi-photo post.
posts, yeah, and then just spitting those out as a separate photo.
Oh,
That's really cool.
And
that's like prettier than Flickr.
yeah. And then there was also
Is this open source too?
Yeah.
Yes.
yeah. So the cool thing about this is that he doesn't have to worry about fetching formats,
Yeah.
dealing with
Yeah, it's just
Mastodon versus RSS feeds versus HTML
You can
feeds.
grab all of it.
It's just rendering stuff from a JSON API that's presenting everything in one format. And all you have to
just
do
the
is render
presentation
format.
level.
And what is the form? What what is the format that it's?
So that's the
Right.
microsub spec, which talks about both the mechanism of this channel and post within the channels, plus the JSON that describes that object.
So the post is being reformatted into the microsub spec,
Everything gets
and then turned into
exactly.
JSON representation.
So every time, so no matter where a post comes from, it ends up getting turned into this, and that's the job of of Aperture in my case. Or if you write your own microsub server, it's the job of your microsub server.
So, and is there feeds that wouldn't need to be if you follow something, would it not need to be
So this is actually a minimal version of a microformats JSON. So the vocabulary is microformats. So author, category, photo, content, those are all microformats terms. In microformats JSON, every value is an array. And this is a simplified version of that where values are not, if there's one value, it's a single, it's a string. So published is one value. So it's like a slightly normalized minimal version of the microformats JSON.
Okay.
Technically, it's possible for someone to publish a feed of this.
JF2?
Although I don't think anybody does yet.
More than experimentally.
Yeah, more than experimentally. And I'm certainly not following any feeds that are JF2. The API that
JF2
is this JSON format.
Is okay. JSON format 2.
It's like a MF2 microformats to JSON.
Oh,
yeah, it's not.
Someone needs to work on their naming.
That's what
Just
one.
put
There
15
were,
in there because
it
you
was-
know that's the good one.
there were worse names.
There were. Coincidentally, this also ends up looking very similar to the micropub format if you want to use the micropub API to create posts. So
all of these formats are under the what
Essentially-
umbrella?
essentially microformats, more or less. It's certainly all derived from actual microformat spec.
Mhm.
But this particular format has its own document that describes the format.
So how does this differ from, let's say, like activity streams markup of the same thing?
Do you remember the URL it compares the two? Isn't there one that has them side by side?
Well,
Is it the activity streams vocabulary document that has them side by side?
I don't think that was ever updated.
There we are.
Like,
Yeah,
especially with JF2.
yeah.
It would
So-
it would be
this is-
really nice to just to have a page that has all of like this
Didn't Kevin do
activity.
one?
Kevin did one comparing to schema. So
Oh,
he
yeah.
didn't do the. Yeah, this is This is like a much flatter and simpler structure than AS2.
I think it'd be really useful for other people who are looking into all of this to see all of them side by side somewhere.
It's
I was thinking that
The
this
AS2
is
spec
already
used to do that,
mhm,
but it got to be too much maintenance.
mhm.
And so then they dropped everything. Like they used to show like 5 different variants.
Yeah.
It's a tough trade-off because from an editor's perspective, it's so much work.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's like I kind of sympathize with them, even though I agree with you. That's
And I'm
my
sure
position.
like this is even something that I would see myself
We switched
wanting
online,
to
but
do
not
just
online.
even for my own use. That's like being useful.
I'm so sorry.
It's so hard to keep all of these things in your mind at once.
Yeah,
Like,
and then
the
people
different-
started asking for variants that like no one was publishing, and we're like, come on. Like,
That's the other thing is that, yeah, like
what is
activity
this
streams
circle?
defines a ton of objects that may or may not actually be in use anywhere.
Right.
And then it doesn't make sense to try to say, oh, this is what it looks like in microformats, because microformats tries to define only the things that are used. So then you end up with a bunch of the document that's like either just wrong because it doesn't ever make sense to do in microformats, or you end up with empty spots. But like there are a handful of things, notes, photos, articles, videos that do actually have the side-by-side comparison that
Right.
you could do.
Yeah.
And so for those, it would be useful. I don't think the spec is the right place for that, but
Right.
that certainly would be a useful like piece of, thing, reference material, learning material.
What was the like? You know why it was decided to use this as opposed to activity streams? Like since they're
Yeah,
similar?
so because most of the time this data is actually coming from microformats feeds anyway, this is a smaller conversion. So a lot of the feeds that I'm following are someone's microformats.
So it's specifically because it was written by someone who mostly has.
I also
that
have
or-
more faith in the vocabulary of the microformat spec than I do in the vocabulary of activity streams.
There, did you talk about Granary?
No.
So
Since-
Granary will translate.
Between the two?
Yeah.
So you can take an activity streams formatted thing and tell it I would like microformats too, and then likewise it will take microformats formatted HTML. I don't think it'll. Well, it might
I
take
think it takes
microformats.
both
JSON.
Oh,
microformats
cool.
HTML and
Oh, it's
microformats
right
JSON.
there.
Yeah. So and that's a way you could take an existing page and look at the differences.
Oh, cool.
And it's
Yeah, so you
probably
can
not.
convert both directions.
Yeah.
But I guess to answer your, so when I wrote this spec, I chose this format because I was already using it for a whole bunch of things. I was using it in the WebEngine.io API. I was using it in like.
So Microsoft was written by you.
JF2 you're saying was already being used.
JF2 was already being used aside, like way before Microsub. JF2 was being used as a simplified version of the microformats JSON because, so I don't know if, nobody's actually mentioned WebEngine.io explicitly, although it's come up in a couple of examples. But WebEngine.io is a service that I wrote a long time ago, many years ago, that will handle receiving web engines for you and then expose them to you in an API. So the idea is you put this on your website and then it starts collecting web engines for you, and then it gives you an API, which looks like this. So you can just fetch that URL and then you get this back. This format in here is essentially, actually this one, I think this example is a little out of date, but it ends up returning back to you this JSON format that is a simplified version of the microformats, because with web engines, pretty much exclusively the data that's being sent back and forth is in the microformats format. And so that format existed for a long time. And then when I was doing microsub, I was like, well, I need a format. And well, this thing seems to be working.
Mm-hmm.
It's gone through, it's got now several implementations.
Right.
It's based on the microformats vocabulary, which is very solid. So it was a very easy fit. Whereas activity streams is a completely new thing into the ecosystem, because there aren't actually that many activity streams producers at the time. Even still, there aren't that many. And like, even if you count Mastodon, that's one. Mastodon counts as one in this, when you count these things, right? It doesn't count for all the instances of it. And the other software like Pleroma and those each count as one. So there's only a handful.
Peer 2?
Peer 2, yeah. Whereas there are dozens
I mean, any
of microformats producers.
anything that is outputting activity pubs, outputting an activity streams feed, because it's
Almost, yeah. I mean, it's definitely using the activity streams
So there's-
JSON at some point in the process.
Right.
But there's still actually, I think, far more producers of microformats HTML when you count pieces of code generating it, not by number of posts
And consumer.
yeah.
and consuming it. Yeah.
Like it's like 10x at this point.
Yeah. And that was absolutely true a year ago.
Do you have any thoughts on, so there's RSS, which is kind of XML based, and there's another version of that, which is basically just JSON of RSS. I think it's
JSON feed, you mean?
JSON feed, yeah, that one. Do you have any thoughts on
And
it?
there's Atom.
Sorry?
And there's Atom.
Yeah,
Atom, which
right.
is another
It's still-
XML version.
It's still XML. So
Um,
just, well, so specifically about JSON feed, like what,
Yeah,
have,
so-
have you seen it? What's its
Yeah,
adoption?
so
What are
I
your
mean, I
thoughts
know
on
the people
it?
that wrote it.
It's
And
just that Granary does the transition.
yeah, Granary has support for it too. So JSON feed was created as a JSON version of RSS,
Mhm.
not as a JSON syntax for arbitrary posts
Yep.
and microblog, or it was created for microblog.
Micro.blog.
Micro.blog, but it was meant to be a JSON format for blogging and microblogging and the replacement for RSS. The idea that there might be additional content types wasn't really part of the goal.
Yeah.
Whereas,
So would it be accurate?
so like events, it doesn't have a mechanism to publish events. It doesn't have, it doesn't even really talk about replies.
Yeah. Can we say that it's basically their theory was that what's wrong with RSS is that it's XML. Let's make it JSON,
Yeah.
and hopefully that will fix problems. So, like, do you
That was
think
100% the goal of it. Yeah.
do you like what was the effect? Do you know anything about?
I think it has
Does it help?
helped that ecosystem
Mhm.
of people who would have had to deal with XML otherwise now have an easier time because it's JSON.
Okay.
I don't think it's helping expand the concept of decentralized
Right,
social networking.
So basically,
Um,
RSS didn't actually grow that much because of this new addition or change.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
got some
It's-
people
I mean,
excited about it.
yeah.
but
There are more people building
Yeah, like
consumers of it now that it is JSON and it's easier to deal with.
Mhm.
But I don't think it's gone outside of the worldview that it lives in.
NPR
Right.
supports
So that
JSON feeds
basically-
now? Wow, cool.
that proves that it wasn't really a huge bottleneck for people. Like if you wanted to use RSS, it being in XML wasn't really a showstopper for.
Yes and no. I think there are some
At least
cases where it would
not a
have
huge
been,
one.
but
I mean, JSON feed's only been around for what, a year and a half now or something? It's like
It's
very
very
early in the.
The big difference there is that there's not a lot of legacy content in JSON feed. So they were able to make really strict assertions about what's a valid JSON feed,
Sure.
lots of musts about that.
Mhm.
But the RSS spec and both ecosystem is much looser about. So consuming JSON feed is
Yeah.
orders of magnitude
Right, 'cause
simpler,
You know, it's
And
like this is
easier,
modern stuff.
reliably, than consuming RSS, which you essentially at this point have to do like one website at a time.
Yeah.
'Cause there's like
so
many
in that sense, it is a
programs.
huge improvement
Mhm.
over RSS.
But it
Like,
would
a lot
have
of
been the same if you
developers-
started over RSS like in XML today or like a year ago. So it wasn't the fact that it's going from XML to JSON. It's
It
just the
is.
fact that it's more
The-
recent.
No, that's
Well-
it is because XML is often generated by templates, and that's part of the reason that you get so much buggy XML. Whereas JSON is generated by like programmatically creating an object hierarchy, which is a completely different
at
and
least,
more
like-
robust like programming methodology.
It'll be valid.
And
JSON.
And essentially, XML is fundamentally flawed based on the development culture around it. From that perspective, it's like fundamentally fragile. I should say.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's- I wouldn't want to
So,
have
yeah.
to like parse incorrect.
It
XML.
seems simple to say, oh, it's just JSON instead of XML.
Mm.
But then when you dig one level deeper, it's like, well, what's the programming culture around it and how's it generated? You end up with like, oh, XML culture actually creates a massive mess, whereas JSON has somehow kept things
Mhm.
fairly strict.
Yeah.
For like
Mhm.
a number of years, like 10 years now.
Mhm.
Like I feel like that's a pretty strong
Pretty good. Yeah.
record.
So
Awesome,
yeah,
thanks,
so
that's insightful.
Yeah, that's a big technological difference. Even though it just looks like angle brackets versus braces.
Yeah.
Like superficially, I agree. Like it just.
That's why I wanted to ask the question.
Yeah. Sorry, that was a little bit more
No,
deep dive than you wanted.
that's good. I think, but yeah, what JSON feed didn't do is try to address alternate, like completely unrelated or alternate content types, because it was trying to fix RSS.
Yeah.
And I think it did do that very well. But like it doesn't really support the, it barely supports photos. Like most of the time you're just putting an image HTML tag inside of the JSON feed thing, like the content, and it doesn't support the concept of additional attributes on properties on posts, really, like the way that we can do, say, this is a reply to this post. It has an extension mechanism where you can just stuff arbitrary key value pairs into a special object but it's always being treated as this sort of extension third-party thing.
Yeah.
Not part of it doesn't really feel like it's part of the post.
Makes sense.
So anyway, that's probably way more background than is important for this, but
So if I want to play around with Monocle or Together right now, the easiest way is to sign up for your Aperture thing on your
sign up for
3DK IO.
Yep, sign up for Aperture on that, which is the instance I run.
And then you did all of this. It's all on. It's PHP.
It's all PHP.
And is PHP the only thing that it's been implemented in?
No, so there is also a I think it's Go.
Yeah.
Oh wait,
Extra?
yeah,
Yeah, I think that's good.
Cool.
servers. Here we go.
So when I,
Yeah,
when
so he has one, Peter has one written in Go, and it uses Redis to store stuff. Jack is working on a WordPress plugin that can store it itself. Oh yeah,
Ryan, of course, wrote a bridge.
Ryan wrote a bridge that takes like the NewsBlur API and then converts it into this format, exposes the server in this format, but using an existing reader as a backend. So you can either like jump in and try to run, this one in Go, or if you look at the spec, it's not that large, it's not that complicated, and you can just make an API that returns the data in this format, and you just figure out how to get your own posts into it somehow. Yep. Oh yeah, so I wanted to mention, that's the other thing. So now that I want to show together versus Monocle to show you the idea that these are just two front ends on top of the same data. The thing where I wanted to go with that was all that these apps care about is that there is a list of things, and if you ask it for what's in them, it returns a list of things. This app doesn't actually make any assumptions about what these things are or what order they're in or where they're from. So you could actually make, I'm starting to experiment with ideas around this, but you could definitely make like a sort of virtual channel that's like, show me the latest post from all of my friends.
Yep.
And that's just something that your microsub server would do. And as long as it's exposing the data in this format, this app will be able to show it. So you can do all sorts of crazy experiments with that. You can have it return the latest check-in from all of your friends, and
so
you
then,
get a list of people instead of a reverse chronological timeline.
So instead of changing the front end of Monocle, you'd be changing the data on the back end.
Exactly. Yeah.
And conversely, like the way Aperture works with each channel has a micropub endpoint, so you can actually post content into a channel. So you can have the micro sub backend be dumb, and then have clients that tap in to like send notifications or do a bunch of analysis and then create entries that are like you might also like.
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like the smarts could be outside of it as well and just use the channels as a dumb transport.
So I want to point out that I'm seeing that with Aperture, something like Aperture and Monocle, it's basically what I was mentioning at the previous session, where like the service is literally disconnected from the data. The data is Aperture, and the service that's visualizing, etc., is Monocle, and you could totally swap them out, etc., etc. So that is definitely awesome to see.
Yeah, I want to show this view also, which is a map view of all the posts in the channel, and so any post that has geolocation shows up here, which is amazing.
Yeah.
But like Grant was saying, it's mostly just my face that pops up because not that many people are actually posting geolocated posts.
How can you tell which one's the most recent though?
I don't think he has an indication. Okay. There should be like a blue dot around the most recent one or something, blue circle.
Oh, that's a great suggestion.
Is this just one of the views of IndieWeb Friends? You can swap it out.
This is all logged in. There's no unlogged in view of any of this.
Yeah.
And has anyone made any like viewers or things that are not for public internet or open?
Yeah. So I took this channel, which is a channel in my private Aperture
public mentions,
and I made a channel called IndieWeb Public, and then I have a couple of sources of. That's the other thing I did in Aperture is I made it have some options.
So you can make a bunch of like planet views of different things that you're following and stick them.
So the setting here, in the settings for the channel, it runs a keyword match, and of the feeds I've added, posts will only show up if they match one of these keywords, and exclude these posts or block certain keywords. So now, if you look at here, these are all like basically a bunch of feeds from IndieWeb community members, and so this is great for me to look at, but because again, Microsoft Server is just an API version of JSON data. I have an API key for this channel, and if you go to stream.indieweb.org, this is actually like a little totally separate app running somewhere that has my API key hard-coded into it, and it goes and requests from Aperture that channel, and then shows it all as a timeline.
DNS won't result.
Why won't DNS? Hello, DNS.
Greg was having trouble with Chrome and DNS earlier on this network.
That's interesting. I don't think I have Firefox installed.
Safari.
Killing me, man.
Curl.
Yeah. Come on.
Is it HTTPS?
I think I put that in there.
For what it's worth,
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I'll try that.
it loaded immediately in Firefox.
Thank you.
So, whatever's going on with DNS resolution, Firefox is cool. Thoughts about
Are you in the
social
same Wi-Fi?
Yes.
Stream IndieWeb.org, right?
Stream.anyway.
This has now become a Firefox install fest.
That was fast. I guess it's a university to get pretty fast Wi-Fi here.
All right, we have a little more than 5 minutes. Are there other things you want to copy? Or copy? Are there other things? I don't know what's going on in my brain. Are there other things you want to cover, Aaron? Or
No, I don't think I think I want. So I wanted to just set up the pieces to illustrate how the pieces all fit together. Do you ever think you're pretty good? Oh, great.
You said maybe you could show us your posting interface or
Oh, yeah,
your
yeah.
back end of your, since
Cool.
that's not public and I'm curious
So
of it.
this is the interesting thing. My website has no interface to create posts. I'm logged into my website. The only interface I get is this, which has my nicknames cache and a couple of settings. So I have like, I can go and configure where I can syndicate. I can configure what channels to show in which, like on the bottom bar. But there's no way for me to create posts. I do get the ability to edit metadata on posts. So I get this little edit button, which I can change the date, I can change the slug, I can add tags, I can syndicate to places. But I can't create posts. So instead, I go to Quill. And Quill
Oh, I see. You're using Quill as your.
is the place I
Your
go to write
UI.
posts. And it is a, wow, DNS is just on a roll today. And Quill is a micropub app, and anybody can use Quill
Yeah.
if your website supports micropub. And so that is my posting interface. Chrome has
And then-
failed.
What do you use Quill on your phone too?
Yeah, so I do. I have
But there's
a,
no native. There's no
native app.
yet.
but I just have like a bookmark to it.
there are native apps that do micropub.
And is that what blog what is it called? Micro.blog is
Micro.blog has an iOS client, and there's an unofficial couple of Android clients
right.
that use micropub. You kind of have to do a little dance to make it post to your site instead of to post to micro.blog. But it works. And then
But it's using the same thing in the back.
micro.blog accepts micropub.
And then this Indigenous is both a reader as well as a micropub app. So you can actually go into Indigenous and then write a post.
Are there any next things you're hoping happen in the microsub ecosystem
Or micropub.
or micropub?
Yeah. The question I was going to
It's
ask
a nice
about
strike.
You're going to ask about,
undo.
oh yeah.
Like, what would it take to be
Sure,
able to be in your it's in your reader, right? Like
Oh.
you can write a comment on someone's site. And you're like, maybe someone posts something like really rude or annoying. And you're like, this sucks. Post. And you're like, oh, I don't want to do that. Undo.
Undo as in it has been posted and I need to delete it, or undo as in it hasn't yet posted because it buffered it.
Both.
So when I do post something from here, I get it'll make a micropub post to my site, and then it shows me the URL that it made. So I could either have this queue it and give myself a delete button in this interface, or I could have it give myself a delete button and it would actually just delete it after it posted it. I could totally do it. I don't personally think that's
there
much
are
of
side
a
effects, right?
much
So,
of a
if a new post shows up on your site and it's published, theoretically you're sending web sub notifications, like feeds are getting pulled, and other people would see it. So you might also want to introduce a delay. We talked about that earlier.
And that's why I think undo is potentially a little bit of a different action than just a delete, is that you actually don't want all those things to fire off for a little while.
there. I don't know why Firefox can move this just fine.
Oh, this is cool.
But yeah, so this is a public web page. It just happens to look like my reader, but it's a bunch of IndieWeb community members anytime they mention IndieWeb things.
And it's mostly stuff from Twitter, but it's also grabbing RSS.
No, it's
and-
almost entirely not Twitter. Actually, none of it's Twitter.
What is this?
That is
Oh, this
contact
is a
replying
mentioning
to somebody
it.
on
I
Twitter.
see.
Same with Eddie.
Oh, how come that didn't show the reply context? Oh, I guess. Okay, sorry. It is.
This
showing
doesn't
the-
show. This shows just the URL right now. I don't have it expanding that.
That's what it's replying to.
But yeah.
But
so
that
this
is from my H feed, so you're pulling, right?
Yes. So yeah, it's using that.
It's not using that. It's using it from my homepage, which shows
Right. Yeah.
the.
You're right. It's,
Okay.
yeah, I'm showing it from the homepage.
But I have to. I'm trying to use Monocle. So I have to add that micro sub endpoint to my website as
Yeah. So
along
the trick
with
there,
the indie, along with the indie auth
along with
stuff.
Indie Auth.
Okay.
And the reason for that is that gives your site, that puts your site in control of where all the data lives, so that Monocle doesn't have to decide which
Right.
backend of
That's
its
smart.
own to use.
That's smart.
I think there have already been folks talking about allowing multiple, which kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm not
Where's
against
the?
Yep.
There's no link to
all
what
right.
it needs for that.
Y'all
Where do
can
I
keep
find
jamming,
the
but this is
Microsoft
officially
endpoint
time.
to put on my
There's
Oh.
10 more
website?
minutes before the final
It says
session
Microsoft
starts
endpoint.
in the main room. Video
Um,
conference room.
Is it?
Did you log into Aperture already?
Yeah.
So Aperture should have
Thanks.
a.
That's right.
Yeah, thanks.
It's this.
That.
So just
Copy
put
that.
that in the head
In-
of my.
Final session is the notification.
Yeah, notifications is next, and it's in the video conference room.
Cool. And then there's wrap after that.
Yeah, wrap will be in the main area.
So that just can go right under.
Yep.
All right, I'm
And
gonna shut this
I
thing
hope
down and then
you
collect my crap.
Don't encounter the bug that I think might exist, which is that it also requires micropub. I can't remember if I made Monocle
Hi, Jack.
or not. So cross your fingers. Oh, good.
Right now I have to wait for
Oh.
it to send the. Is this session